Broadcasting from Detroit's Cass Corridor, it's the Metro on WDET. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Robyn, Vincent. Today on the show, the program is all about power, how it's exercised, how it's resisted, and how its consequences ripple outward.
We begin in Detroit, where a new mayor is setting the direction for the city's next chapter. We'll talk with the Sheffield administration about its early moves.
Then we turn to Minneapolis. After 2 people were killed by federal immigration agents, the city has become a focal point for protests, organizing, and hard questions about accountability.
We'll hear from a journalist who's been in the streets listening to residents and tracing what this moment means and what it might signal for cities like Detroit.
Later, we step back to ask a larger question. What does the civil rights movement look like in 2026?
How language, strategies, and demands have shifted, and how culture, technology, and dialogue are shaping the next phase of that work. This is the Metro. We
begin in Detroit's halls of power. It's been less than a month since Mayor Sheffield took office as mayor, but already she's begun putting her agenda into motion. Her administration is creating a new Office of Neighborhood and Community Safety. It's establishing new departments aimed at reducing poverty. And it's bringing RX Kids here, which is a program that gives cash to new mothers. So why did Sheffield's office make these changes? And what does she hope to accomplish in her first year? To discuss all this, we have David Bowser here. He's Mayor Sheffield's Chief of Staff. David, welcome.
Hey, good to be here.
So first, I want to listen to Mayor Sheffield speaking when she was sworn in on January 1st.
In this next chapter, we must commit ourselves to the work of building a beloved community, one that is rooted in dignity, justice, and opportunity for every Detroiter.
Constructing a beloved community, that is a beautiful but very tall order. What does building a beloved community mean to the Sheffield administration?
Thank you. Yeah, what you'll hear from this administration is a focus on quality of life improvements for all residents across the board. One of the things that we focused on during the campaign was making sure that each and every Detroiter in every neighborhood felt Detroit's resurgence. We had heard a message from residents about feeling left out of the sort of build out that had happened uptown. And so how do we make sure that neighborhoods now feel the resurgence? How do we make sure that individual residents feel the opportunity and receive the opportunities that they've been asking for so long? And so one is making sure that every resident does have those opportunities. 2 is accentuating Detroit's natural resources, which are its people. How do we make sure that residents have access to great transportation, great paying jobs, a great education system, ecosystems of resources that they can easily access within their neighborhoods? We want to make sure that we're supporting residents with new improvements, with new programs and departments, and ultimately ensure that everyone feels Detroit's resurgence. And I think that what we've been doing in terms of the transition and making sure that residents can have their input in how the city moves forward is the starting point. And it continues throughout the administration with initiatives designed to meet needs that residents are expressing.
So the overarching goal is to make sure that there are no Detroiters that are being left behind. What does the administration hope to accomplish in its first year in office in relation to this goal?
We want to make sure that residents, again, feel that they have a part in the resurgence of the city. That means that when programs, initiatives are being designed, that they have a space at the table, that they have opportunities to provide their input. Right now, there are sort of charter mandated meetings where the administration will speak to residents, but we really want to have residents speaking to us throughout the year, throughout the months. And so what that looks like is more opportunities for residents close to their homes to be able to interact with the administration, whether that's through opportunity hubs where you have city staff placed in neighborhoods, whether it's a phone number where you can access all city resources at once, whether it's community convenings where neighbors and neighborhoods are expressing what amenities, what retail opportunities, what jobs, what sort of housing options they want in their neighborhoods. We want to make sure that we are engaging residents around what they want and what they have asked for, and then moving forward to meet those needs. And so there, over the first year, I really hope that residents can feel this direct connection between what they want and what they see in their neighborhoods and in the city.
Okay, so it is about really listening to people. What do you see as some of the challenges in doing that?
I think one sort of traditional challenge has always been access and individuals' ability to know that there are barriers around, for example, internet access,
Yeah.
transportation, literacy, employment, housing. Individuals who have basic quality of life concerns typically are not able to participate as robustly within the processes that the city wants them to participate in. And so one way to do that is actually provide more opportunity to residents so that they can then prioritize their sort of civic voice. If we can make sure that you have stable housing, now we can have conversations about you contributing in a different way to the city. If we can make sure that we look at transportation modalities other than you having a vehicle, but introducing improvements to DDOT, having more innovation around mobility, we can make sure that these basic needs are met. And now, again, we can have conversations in other spaces. And so that's, again, where the quality of life piece is. We have data on a district by district basis about what these barriers are, whether it's, again, housing insecurity, transportation, internet access. So that's why we want to bring resources directly to spaces using this data. If there is housing insecurity in a particular district, we want to make sure that we are ramping up our economic development and our housing development strategies in that space. So that's one of the ways that we want to be very specific about how we address needs for residents and thereby introduce them into kind of their civic responsibilities in terms of contributing to the city's vision.
David, you're touching on something that we talk about pretty frequently on this show, and that is that engagement, though, can be a luxury. A lot of government meetings, for example, are held during the workday when folks can't get away. So do you plan then, when you're talking about doing community events and really getting out there, how much of that looks like after hours engagement and weekend engagement and doing stuff not during that traditional workday?
Yeah. That's a great point. Mayor Sheffield has directed the Department of Neighborhoods to be that resource wherever residents are and whatever time it may be that residents need a resource. And so you have district by district sort of managers and deputy managers who are going to be there after hours as needed at community meetings, forming block clubs, attending block club meetings to get the message out about what the administration is doing and what the administration needs to hear about in order to formulate the plans. Even now, we have 5 district level meetings happening to engage residents around the transition process. Everything we talked about on the campaign trail it's not set in stone until residents weigh in. And so those meetings are happening 5:30 or later around the city to make sure that residents are able to contribute and to attend. And so as we launch additional programs, you will see different ways to interact with programs, whether that's in person, whether we're going out door to door to deliver resources, whether we're simplifying the resource attainment process, which is you apply for one thing and you're actually being able to apply for several different resources so that you don't have to search for additional help elsewhere. We want to make sure that we're co-locating resources, making people understand and meeting people where they are, but also making sure that we are bridging gaps that we know exist between people and resources and people and the input that we want to hear from them.
And then on the decision-making level, I mean, you're creating these new offices, such as the Office of Neighborhood and Community Safety. There are a lot of department heads in the city. And then, of course, there's you, the chief of staff, and the mayor making decisions as well. I'm wondering, what does the decision chain actually look like from the mayor's office to the department heads?
Yeah. So one quality of Mayor Sheffield is her ability to bring tables together to collaborate around solutions. And so what we've seen her do throughout the campaign is start off with an issue that she wants to address and then bring voices to the table to figure out the best way to address those issues. We typically do not start with prescribed ways to address things. We want to hear from residents about what their issues are and what they've been missing. And so what we're doing now is being much more collaborative on the administrative level as well. Our org chart is much more simplified. And so what we have are groups of officials meeting together with the mayor to hear what her objectives are throughout the administration, and then collaboratively coming up with ways to address issues after reaching out to residents about the best way to do that. And so in the same way that she's collaborative with the community, she's going to be a collaborative across the board with departments. When we're talking about economic development now, we have the health department at the table. We have the youth affairs department at the table. We have community safety at the table to make sure we are creating holistic solutions for any strategy that we have throughout the city. And in turn, those departments are engaging residents around what they're bringing to the table. So it starts from the very top, and then it percolates to every department and every department's ability to interact with residents as well.
It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robyn Vincent. My guest is David Bowser. He's the chief of staff to Detroit Mayor Mary Sheffield. We're discussing the mayor's priorities as she nears the end of her first month in office. And David, I realize it's very early on, but if you were to point to one distinguishing factor that you think is going to make the Sheffield administration different from the Duggan administration, what would it be?
Well, I think it's our ability to, because of the foundation that the Duggan administration laid, for us to be able to move into quality of life measures as a focus point. Prior, we had to, or the Duggan administration had to get our basic services back online. We had to make sure that services were available, essentially. Street lights were on, that there was, good response times for EMS and DPD. These are the basics of city governance. Now, because we have that foundation, we can move from availability to accessibility, and from accessibility to innovation and equity. And so we have the ability now to be more creative about exactly how residents get resources and not necessarily have to concern ourselves with making resources available in the first place. And so that means that we can bring more voices to the table to discover best ways to get these resources out to folks and strategies to do that. And so I think that the foundation is allowing us to more deeply integrate resident voices where, as before, there's just the need for availability is a very binary yes, no. Now we can figure out how and why we do things with collaboration with residents. And so I think that's kind of the defining factor. It allows us to focus on quality of life and poverty alleviation, which are the underlying causes of many of the issues that we see in the city. So our ability to pivot is because of the foundation that was laid. And this is, Mayor Sheffield is the most people-centric individual leader that I've worked with. And so now is the exact right time for her to be leading this effort.
So in other words, you can't shine a light on the problems if the lights aren't on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, okay, if you had to identify, and I'm sorry to do this to you again, pick one scenario, but it is very interesting for us to think about this. If you had to identify one priority that is outshining all the rest this year, what is it?
I think that the through line and within many of the initiatives that we've talked about is poverty alleviation.
Yeah.
I mean, it is really the thing that determines whether or not someone is healthy or not, whether or not someone has access to resources or not. And so I think if we can look at how to address poverty alleviation in both a sort of targeted manner, but also from policy, from strategy within programs, we will see differences up and downstream with outcomes for residents. And so many different ways to many different spaces in which we can address poverty, but that has to be our guiding light, our North Star in a way to make sure that families have access to the resources they need with many folks just kind of living on the razor's edge. One missed bill, one vehicle maintenance issue will throw someone into a space that could result in homelessness and other issues as well. We have got to really create distance between the poverty line and our residents to make sure that folks, again, can be engaged, to make sure that we have better futures for our youth, to make sure that adults have more opportunities for themselves, regardless of what age they are. And so it's a multifaceted approach, but our baseline, what we want to really be looking at, is alleviating the issue of poverty here in Detroit.
David, do you think that this truth, how everything is connected to poverty, particularly when we think about, not only housing insecurity and education, but crime? If there is high poverty, then there's going to be a higher crime rate. Do you feel that this is entering more of the mainstream consciousness, and how do you get this message out to more folks?
I think that we can use the progress that Detroit makes as a way for other cities to and other individuals to create approaches in a similar way. So, for example, with the CVI, the Community Violence Intervention Program, we know that providing additional opportunities to individuals reduces crime. We know that mentorship and providing, again, resources to individuals as alternatives to particular lifestyles ends up with better outcomes for individuals. And so there are some best practices that we can exemplify. There are some best practices that we can create through our approach. But the way that we kind of exemplify or show the world really that what we do works is really by the outcomes of our residents. We want our residents to really tell the story of their involvement, of the opportunities that they were able to find and discover here in Detroit. And then the word will make its way around. We really want our successes to speak for themselves. This is not a marketing strategy. This is just a way to address the needs of households and then let that work kind of speak for itself by introducing down payment assistance expansion, by introducing an infill strategy that builds 1,000 homes over our first 4 years. This will sort of create momentum around what works in a large city that started at one point and ended up in a different point with these particular strategies.
How much of this is going within or underneath the umbrella of the Office of Neighborhood and Community Safety then? I mean, that has been created to reduce crime and violence, and you mentioned the community violence intervention efforts that a lot of folks say have been transformative for Detroit.
Yeah, so creating that umbrella office is allowing us to co-locate our strategies, reach out to funders by collecting the data that we need to collect. It allows us to have a focused space to address violence intervention and violence prevention. And so what it does is for this administration, it solidifies the mayor's support of crime alleviation and providing opportunities to residents. And so it also, by having a director now, that director can also interface with other departments as a matter of strategy. Again, how do we make sure that our planning department interacts and understands the built environment that may create issues in terms of opportunity? How do we make sure that our land bank understands the effect of blight and other things on community violence? We want this office to now begin to work across the administration to look at policy. We can have programs all day, but in order to have lasting, sustainable change, we need to look at contributing factors and using policies to address those factors. And so it allows a more focused approach to community violence intervention and prevention.
Do you think these spheres in Detroit were working too much in vacuums previously when we talk about police and courts and different aspects of community safety?
Yeah, I think there's the tendency when any new program comes online to just really focus on that operation and making sure that the intent of that particular program is met. I think that many times collaboration is sort of secondary to program performance, which when it comes to funding, funders look at performance and the outcomes of a particular initiative. So I think, again, it's a luxury to be able to branch off into collaboration and upstream policymaking as well. And so I just think it's an issue of timing. I think that this administration is much more is really focused on preventing and reducing silos and building bridges between initiatives. And so again, it's more so the right time to do so. And we've had the mandate of 77% of the vote to go ahead and do that. And so that's what we're operationalizing now.
David, before I let you go, I want to talk about something that's weighing heavy on a lot of people, and that is that federal immigration officers and ICE itself have been in the spotlight for killing 2 people in Minneapolis and for being violent toward protesters in that city. And Mayor Sheffield responded to the killing of Alex Preddy by saying, quote, "What we are witnessing raises serious concerns about America's safety, rights, and freedoms." Is the city and its police force currently working with ICE?
The city and its police force have constructive relationships with federal law enforcement. To the extent that individual rights are violated, we have not had an issue like that here in Detroit. There is a constructive way to ensure that these agencies are working together to actually reduce crime, to actually make sure that residents are safe. And that's what's happening based on our chief Bedison's relationships there with our mayor's focus on protecting individual rights. That's what's happening here. I mean, we stand in solidarity with communities who are facing issues like this. But here in Detroit, we have not experienced that level, and we have very constructive working relationships with federal agencies to address sort of agreed upon issues that we may have here in Detroit. And so we're thankful for that. And like I said, we stand in solidarity with communities who are undergoing the opposite.
One more thing on that note. Yesterday, the mayor said Detroit has done a great job of not being on the radar or a target of ICE.
I think that in Detroit, we have done a great job of ensuring that we are not a target or on the radar in the city of Detroit, and we will continue down that path. We have some meetings forthcoming with District 6 Council member Santiago Ramiro to hear her concerns, but most importantly, we want everyone in Detroit to know that they are valued, that they should feel safe and feel respected.
So, David, what does that mean? How does a city stay off the radar of ICE?
I think that we have just a consistent sort of methodology here where we don't see spikes of activities or we don't see certain surges of activity here in Detroit. We have a singular sort of focus on, baseline, guaranteeing of rights, on making sure that residents feel safe and respected, and a relationship that allows us to move through that partnership without major impact to the lives of our residents. And so I think, but that consistency and that focus on collaboration, positive collaboration to protect residents, is what keeps us in a space where we can actually do this work, but not have these surges that you see in other spaces. And so we're looking to maintain that and also looking to understand from our local immigrant rights communities, what they're experiencing and what they're hearing locally as well. So it's not just the relationships with the federal agencies, but our relationships with our community agencies as well, who advocate on behalf of our immigrant population. We're maintaining close contact with them too. And so from both sides, we want to make sure that we have a very consistent and constructive relationship to continue the success that we've had so far.
I wonder, for you, being a part of the city of Detroit's leadership, what it has felt like to watch the scenes out of Minneapolis.
Yeah, it's certainly sobering. Again, being in this position, kind of understand what it's like to be at the forefront of how a city is sort of looked at and what a city kind of experiences. You kind of take that on your shoulders yourself as a city leader. And so, again, I mean, we do stand in solidarity because we do understand how it feels to have crises happen in your particular city. And if you care anything about your residents, you understand that feeling as well. And so tremendous sense of loss when things like this occur. But again, we want to make sure that we're supportive. We want to make sure that residents here feel supported. And we want to continue the good work and the positive work that has happened as a result of some of these relationships. And again, continue to keep our finger on the pulse with our local immigrants' rights organizations to understand what capacity they need and what assistance they need to do the work that they're doing within our communities.
David Bowser is Mayor Mary Sheffield's Chief of Staff. David, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robyn Vincent. Coming up, we hear from a journalist who was on the ground in Minneapolis about what this moment feels like for that city and what Metro Detroiters can learn from it. Stay with us.